Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the fruit of the Spirit with Bjorklund.
So the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy is an attitude that really transcends our circumstances. But why is it so elusive for so many of us? And the easy, quick answer is because we demand from our life something that it isn't necessarily guaranteed to give us. We want our life to give us a kind of security in the here and now, and we want God to serve us often in that way. And what we need to come to do is to say, God gives me joy regardless of where I am. So in the book of Psalms, Psalm 3, Psalm 4, there's a section where David is fleeing from Absalom, his son. And the context of the story is that Absalom has decided that he wants to be king, and so his son tries to take away his father's throne. He takes a military coup and comes against David. David flees, and he has to run for his life. And he starts chapter 3, and he says, "O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there's no salvation for him in God." And then he says this, he says, "But you are my shield, or a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head." Now notice, there's an external factor here to his fear. And if we talked about hopelessness or fear in some ways being one of the opposites of joy, what you see for David is he had a legitimate external reason to be fearful. People are trying to kill him. And he had, in some ways, internal factors. Verse 2, "Many are saying of my soul, there's no salvation for him in God." Now, David had been this spiritual figure, the king, the psalmist, the worshiper of God. And now what people are doing is they're saying, "David, you're not so spiritual. There's no hope for you. You are done." And there's a sense in which fear, real fear, is something that comes into our lives, a healthy fear, that is normal and it's constructive, it's specific. In other words, if you're at night hear a sound that like an invader and you're aroused to fear, that's a normal, specific, and even constructive fear because you're saying, I need to do something about that before my home is invaded. But an unhealthy fear is something that is ultimately paralyzing, diffuse, and non-specific, meaning that it's something that is in your life that you just simply look at and you say, I don't know why I'm feeling so uneasy. I just have this vague sense that something bad is out there, that there's bad things ahead of us. And so David here has a fear that's healthy. And then it says this, here's what he does. He doesn't sit in his fear. And again, this is part of why it's elusive, is because we sit in our fear. But he says, Lord, you are a shield about me, my glory, the lifter of my head. And here's why this is such an important phrase, my glory, the lifter of my head. What David does in the moment that his fears are substantial is he says, God, you're my glory. And I mentioned yesterday that often our lack of joy and the reason that we think we don't have joy reveals an idol. It reveals something that we worship, something that we glory in, something that we want more than God. Where we say, I don't have joy because X happened or didn't happen. Well, that's something that we have elevated to be our glory. And anything in this world that is our glory is not safe. And so David is able to say, you're a shield about me. By the way, the word shield here, Megan, is a word in Hebrew for the larger of the two typical shields. There was one that was small and handheld, and then a second one that was all-encompassing, surrounding. And he uses this one here because he's talking about how God surrounds him, encompasses him. And he says, and you're my glory. You're the one who lifts my head. And he says, then I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. And so David is one who can find joy in the midst of his hardship, in part because he is able to say that he didn't get trapped in the elusiveness of joy by saying, I have to locate my joy in my palace, in the relationship with my son, in my reputation with other people. My joy is located ultimately in Jesus Christ, or in God in his case, Yahweh, not in not in his circumstances.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.